We live on Earth, one of the 8 planets orbiting an average star, the Sun. Nothing special about it, just another dot of light in a galaxy of dots. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, alone contains somewhere around 200 billion stars. For every grain of sand here on Earth, there are roughly 10,000 stars out there in the sky. That's 10 to the power of 22. That's not a big number. That's a number that breaks the human brain. Now, even if just 1% of those stars have what we call exoplanets, planets in that sweet spot, not too hot, not too cold, planets with liquid water, with oxygen, with the basic building blocks of what we call life, that still gets us to more than 1 billion planets that look something like Earth. 1 billion planets. So given all of that, given the sheer incomprehensible scale of what's out there, the most logical question in the universe is also the simplest one. Where is everybody? That question was asked out loud, casually, over lunch, by a man named Enrico Fermi. It was 1950. He was sitting with a group of colleagues at Los Alamos National Laboratory, the birthplace of the atomic bomb. And Fermi wasn't just any scientist in the room. His colleagues called him the Pope, not as a joke, but as a sign of how untouchable his mind was. He had already changed the world. He built the first nuclear reactor. He helped design the bomb that ended the Second World War. He was one of the most brilliant minds in human history. In the middle of a casual lunch conversation about UFO sightings, Fermi put down his fork and asked something that would outlive everything else he ever said. Where is everybody? A lunch table question that 75 years later still doesn't have an answer. That's what we now call the Fermi's Paradox. There have been around 115 billion humans who have ever existed on this planet. 115 billion lives. 115 billion people who were born, who looked up at the night sky, who wondered, who feared, who loved. And almost all of them died without ever fully understanding the planet they were standing on, let alone the universe above them. And here's something even harder to sit with. 99% of all species that ever existed on Earth are now extinct, gone, forever. Species that lived for millions of years, wiped out. No warning, no negotiations. So what does that say about us? What does that say about our future? We used to believe the Earth was the center of everything, that the sun revolved around us, that the universe was built for us. We were wrong. We believed the Earth was flat. Wrong again. And every single time we've expanded our knowledge, every single time we've looked closer, we found that we are smaller and more fragile than we have thought. So it's completely logical to assume that there is life out there, somewhere in that ocean of billions of Earth-like planets. Something else exists. Something that thinks. Something that builds. Something that looks up at its own night sky and wonders. And yet, nothing but silence. There is a dedicated agency called the SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that has spent decades scanning the sky, listening for any signals, any patterns, any whispers of something out there. And after all that time, nothing. To be fair, we are limited to our galactic neighborhood, what astronomers call the local group, a small cluster of galaxies in our corner of the cosmos. Anything beyond that is billions of light years away. And because the universe itself is expanding, accelerating outwards as we speak, some of those distances are growing faster than we could ever travel, even at the speed of light. Maybe the silence is just the limit of how far our ears can reach. But within what we can reach, within a galaxy that holds 1 billion Earth-like planets, the silence is still deafening. The most unsettling answer to the Fermi's question is something called the Great Filter. First proposed by economist Robin Hanson in 1996, the idea is straightforward and terrifying. Somewhere along the road from dead rock to intelligent civilizations, there is a wall. a filter. Some step in the process that is so brutally difficult, so statistically unlikely, that almost nothing gets through it. Most life, even if it gets started, never makes it to the other side. The question is, where is that filter? Because there are only two possibilities, and one of them is really bad for us. If you've enjoyed watching the video so far, please like the video and subscribe. Possibility 1. The filter is behind us. Maybe the hardest step was the very beginning, life forming from nothing. A process known as biogenesis, or single-celled life making the jump to complex multicellular organism, which on Earth took nearly 2 billion years. Or maybe the leap to consciousness and intelligence is the rare step, something that almost never happens. If any of those stages are the filter, then we are the lucky ones. We beat the odds. We made it through. And the silence makes sense, because almost no one else did. That's the good scenario. Possibility 2. The filter is ahead of us. This is where you should feel something cold, because if we're finding increasingly that life is common, that early complex life isn't as rare as we thought, then the filter probably isn't behind us, which means it's waiting, somewhere between where we are now and where we could be. And given what we know about civilizations, including our own, you don't have to think too hard about what the filter might look like. Take for example, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, climate collapse, biological warfare, any number of those things that an intelligent species might build before it builds the wisdom to control them. I mean, look at us. We have nuclear warheads pointed at each other right now as you listen to this. We are racing to build artificial intelligence we don't fully understand. Physicist Michio Kaku has said the filter may be exactly this: the development of technologies that could lead to a civilization's self-destruction. Carl Sagan believed it might be the rarity of intelligence itself. Philosopher Nick Bostrom went further, suggesting the most disturbing possibility of all: finding microbial life on Mars, which might be the worst news we could ever receive, because it would mean life isn't rare, which means the filter isn't behind us. Every advanced civilization reaches a point and then disappears, and we might be next. But maybe they're not gone. Maybe they're just hiding. That's the dark forest hypothesis, popularized by a novel of the same name. And it might be the most psychologically disturbing explanation of all. The dark forest hypothesis presumes that any spacefaring civilization would view any other intelligent life as an inevitable threat and destroy any life that makes itself known. So every civilization makes the same rational choice: stay silent, don't signal, don't draw attention to yourself. Silence is an absence. Silence is survival. And this flips the entire question on its head. We've been asking why no one is talking to us, but the dark forest theory says they hear us, they've always heard us, and the smart ones are terrified that we keep broadcasting our location like we have nothing to lose. Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest minds of our last century, warned repeatedly against trying to make contact. He said that if aliens ever visit us, the outcome would look less like the movies we imagined and more like when Columbus arrived in the Americas, which did not go well for the people already living there. And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. We don't stop broadcasting. Every television signal, every radio wave, every message we've deliberately beamed into the space looking for a reply. We are the civilization in the dark forest, shouting our location into the dark, hoping something friendly hears us first. What if something already did? Maybe the answer is simpler and in its own way just as overwhelming. Maybe we're early. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Complex life took billions of years to develop. Intelligent life, the kind that builds and asks these very questions, has only existed for a tiny sliver of cosmic time. We've been doing this for maybe 300,000 years. Modern civilizations, agriculture, writing, science, maybe 10,000 years. The universe is orders of magnitude older than our ability to comprehend it. So what if we're not late to the party? wondering why we missed everyone, but early? What if the great cosmic flowering of the intelligent life hasn't fully happened yet? What if, in a billion years, the galaxy is teeming with civilizations and we are the ancestors, the ones who came before? There's no one to find yet, not because they died, but because they haven't been born. That's beautiful in a way and terrifying in another. Because it means everything depends on what we do with this window of time we've been given. We are a social species. We have always looked for others. That's not weakness, that's where we are. We want to know where we are not alone. We want a mirror in the stars. But here's the thing that sits with me. Enrico Fermi, the man who asked the most important question in history over lunch, was also one of the men responsible for building the first atomic bomb. The same mind that looked at the sky and asked, "Where is everybody?" was also one of the minds that gave humanity the power to make sure there was nobody left to answer. And that might be the real paradox. Not that the universe is empty, but that we are a species capable of spanning galaxies and also capable of ending ourselves at any step along the way. By accident, by ego, by the relentless pursuit of power before wisdom. We can only make educated guesses when it comes to questions like this. No one truly knows the answer, at least not yet. Maybe there are civilizations out there that visited this planet before humans existed, found nothing of significance, and move on. Maybe there are millions of civilizations in our galaxy right now, hiding, watching, silent. Maybe we are genuinely, mathematically, cosmically alone. The haunting thing is that both extremes are possible, and both are terrifying in different ways. Because if we are alone, then we are the only light in the darkness, and that light is fragile. And if we are not alone, then the silence itself is the warning. Every day we send signals into space. Every day we are the species standing at the edge of the forest, shouting into the dark. Because the need to find someone out there outweighs the fear of what might be listening. Maybe that's courage, maybe that's recklessness, maybe it's both. 75 years after a physicist asked a question at lunch, we still don't know where everybody is. But maybe the more important question is when they find us, and if they find us, what will we be? Will we have figured it out? Will we have made it through whatever filter is waiting for us? Or will we be the answer to someone else's Fermi's Paradox? A civilization that was almost something remarkable and then went quiet. Where is everybody? Maybe the universe is asking us the same thing.